Okay. Wow, it's been a while since I've done some voice recording, so I'm gonna feel super insecure right now. So today we've got my Valentine's Day painting that I did for this year, 2019, and I decided to do a piece of Critical Role fan art. So for those of you who don't know, Critical Role is a web show done initially through Geek and Sundry, but they're now their own entity. And it's a bunch of nerdy ass voice actors playing Dungeons and Dragons. So this character that you see here with the wings is Yasha. She is played by Ashley Johnson, and she's in season 2 of Critical Role. So this piece of story, for those of you who haven't watched it, this is going to be a bit of a spoiler. But we found out that this character is a widow, and it was pretty goddamn heartbreaking when that came about. So myself and my partner bawled our eyes out to this. And I thought about it, and like, I really, really want to draw Yasha with her wife. And this is obviously before tragedy struck. And I had a few ideas. Originally, I think I was going to do something that was pretty goddamn heartbreaking. But I thought I'd go with something a bit happier. But from the responses I got on social media when this went out, it still hit right in the feels, which is good. I figured, job well done. Now you might see or have seen flicking back and forth a playlist on Spotify. So the actors put out a playlist that sort of tells you a bit about the character and the vibe of the character. And I was obsessed with the playlist for Yasha, so I think I had it just on repeat while I was painting this. So the painting probably took me about 4 hours total, and I was pretty into it. So I just spent the whole of Valentine's Day working on this. So I started out with blocking out the sketch, and then doing a bit of just abstract painting behind the sketch, because I didn't really know what I wanted. I wanted something textural, and I've included a bit of that lightning in there because Yasha is sworn to the Storm Warden, Storm Lord. Yeah. So there's lots of lightning things, very heavy metal. And I had her with the white angel wings because she's an Azamar, aka a sort of half celestial. And in the storyline, she is fallen. So after her wife dies, she goes dark. And she ends up with these skeletal bat wings that appear instead of her angel wings. So just there, you would have seen me just double checking on Yasha's color palette. So I just grabbed another piece of fan art here, which is absolutely flippin' beautiful. I will find the name of that artist and drop it into the description. Who did that piece. And I decided when I looked at that color palette for Yasha that I prefer the dark blue for the angel wings. I mean, I know it's not sort of traditional, but it really sells that sort of like moody storm cloud color palette that is Yasha. And that helped me decide. So Yasha's wife here, Zuela, didn't have a lot of description out there. You've only get the tiniest glimpse of her character in a bit of a flashback. I think she's meant to have brown hair, but I sort of went for a bit more gold. I figured I could have a fair bit of creative license with this. The main thing I wanted to portray was warmth. Where Yasha's color palette is cool, is washed out, is dark and moody. I thought it would be nice if Zuela was warm and comforting and earthy. You get the impression that the tribe that they came from is very, I don't know. I have it in my head that it's very Celtic or very Viking-y, just from the way sort of Yasha's clothing design is. So I wanted to get that kind of braiding. Yeah, as I say, the original artist who did the clothing design for Yasha included a lot of braids in there and a lot of like weaving and etc. So I thought I'd try and echo that on my Zuela, along with the sort of the tattoos, that very sort of Picty woad tattoo idea. God, I really enjoyed painting this picture. I spent a lot of time just sort of bringing out that brushy colored tone. I didn't spend too much time trying to create like really super detailed line work. I wanted this to be much more of a sort of just more abstract painting, I guess, where I'm just sort of blocking it in color by color and shade by shade. And it creates a softness to it, which I really like. A lot of my standard drawings, I tend to do a very clean piece of line work first before blocking in the color like this. But as you can see, I'm just painting blobs and cleaning them up. The flowers, I think by that point I got a bit lazy, and so I sort of stopped trying to make the flowers super crisp. I just wanted to imply the flowers. Again, I guess it kind of works. It gives it that kind of very like Renaissance painting feeling. Whatever excuse I can come up with, I guess. Again, like the music playlist was just so chilling. I love it. Did great things for my emo heart. So here you can see I'm just sort of enhancing that implied lightning that I've put in the background. And just sort of adding a bit of like light gradient behind it to sort of help it pop. And then slowly I'm knocking back the sketch the more I paint over it. So you see less of my sort of... so just quickly, I drew this by hand. So a lot of the videos you guys see, I sort of start by sketching straight into Photoshop. But since doing Inktober last year, I've been reminded about how much I do actually like drawing on paper. So this one, the full sketch was originally done on paper with graphite while watching Critical Role. Oh my god. So to get in the mood. Funnily enough, when I first started sketching this and looking for reference images and stuff, I was just like, I don't feel like I'm gonna get anywhere. I don't know if it's gonna be very good. But I fought through the storm, that proverbial storm. And once I sort of finished that sketch, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I really like the energy in here. And like I said, I think I just dedicated a whole day just to painting this. And it's not often I get that luxury. And I had a lot of shit that I had to get done that day or that week. But I decided, today I need to dedicate to my work. To remind myself what inspires me and what rejuvenates me. And I think making a really nice piece of personal art that I'm proud of is exactly what you need to feel like you can then tackle like the other jobs that you have to do. Because I love my client work. I love solving those problems for people and making those images come to life for others. But sometimes I can get a bit drained because it's not my story, my vision. And this reminds me, no, I'm good at what I do, and I'm proud of what I do, and I can look at this and go, yeah, I did that. Cool. I can deliver something really nice for a client then if I can do this. If that makes sense. I still really love the softness of my sketch here, but I've just sort of zoomed in now to really focus on making the faces clear. And essentially I'm just taking the colors that are there and just using a hard round brush to just sort of sharpen it up and just really clearly define the features. And I think this is when I can see it starting to come to a finish, when it's almost like turning the focus on a camera and going from this sort of soft, fuzzy focus to crisp detail. And I think getting that in the faces was really important. Yeah, I don't know. I just had a total love affair with this picture. Yeah, I think I was concentrating on trying to bring, like, Yasha's got this sort of white grey to black gradient in her hair. And I wanted that to sort of come out and still be separated from the background. And I think when I made that decision to change her wings from white to blue, you suddenly were able to see the figures easier. Whereas I think when the wings were white, the background was white, Yasha's skin is white, it all kind of got lost. Whereas, yeah, now it's got this nice dark framing around their bodies, which means it pops out. Oh man, that hand there, that gave me a lot of grief. I sort of like, the sketch was sort of implied. I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool. But then when I started to try and paint it with lighting and shadow and give it form, it just got, I just started to doubt myself. I think I got there in the end, but hands is just hard. Anyone who draws, hands and feet, they're the worst. Too many digits. So just going back to the wings now. I didn't bother doing too much in the way of like individual feathers because again I focused my details on the faces where I wanted you to look. So I got bigger, softer shapes on the outside, so that your eye isn't drawn all over the place. Like if you've got detail everywhere, then sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming or a bit confusing as to where you're supposed to look. So yeah, trying to focus on softer detail on the flowers and the wings, crisper detail on the faces, where that is my focal point. I think at this point I'm really just sort of going through and tidying up stuff where I can see it's messy. I don't really have a process. So just then I copied my layer and applied a blur filter and then erased it back so that that background got really, really soft and then the face got really, really sharp. So just another touch to really reinforce what I was saying about trying to draw your focus to their faces. Yeah, just sketching over the top of those flowers because I think I sort of lost them. I sort of had the colours and the details sort of implied again, but by sketching back over the top I can decide what they are and what they're meant to be, what's leaf, what's flower, etc. But yeah, I was super stoked. Like people seem to be really, really like this picture on Twitter. That really made my day. It's really nice when people respond to something that you're really emotionally connected to. Yeah, and we can always use more gay artwork, I think. I was very much in my own head this day when I was painting and I was sort of wandering around the house, just responding to conversations in my head that my partners who are home were like, what are you talking about? And I think I just spontaneously said, so much gay, like out loud, without any context, which was kind of funny. But yeah, I've just sort of flattened all my layers and I'm just using a dodge and burn tool just to push those highlights and darks, make them a bit richer. Just using my levels just to help crunch that. I tend to throw on a little bit of a canvas paper texture at the end just to give it a little bit more grit, because sometimes Photoshop painting can look a little too artificial, too smooth, and I like there to be a little bit of texture going on. But they're the sorts of things that I sort of help tie a picture in at the end. But once I've done that, I then have another look and go, oh, there's a few things that aren't popping the way I was hoping. And I just sort of add those tiny little highlights in as best I can. You really can't tell what I'm working on at the moment. It's just the little extra touch, the finicky details that artists have to do. And then I'm just closing off all my shit. That was just me opening all the other windows up. Anyway, I hope you liked it, and like hearing me waffle. Till next time, folks.